All right, patch 11.3. Hello, YouTube. Twitch says hello to you as well. I already forgot to record this once, so they've already sent their messages. I'm sure they're sad about that because Raisins is bad streamer. Patch 11.3. There's a ton of big changes. This is going to be a longer patch notes rundown because there's actually some really huge changes, not only for Alistair and for my role. There's a new item, 2 new items. There is a massive change to Stridebreaker. There's a Tam Kench rework. I saw No Arm Watley streaming earlier today, and he had like 500 viewers. A lot of people seem to be interested in seeing how the new Tam Kench works. So super cool, super cool. We're gonna go check it out. I'm not gonna read this, but you know, if you want to read it, have fun. So they're buffing Aphelios, and they say that apparently in elite play, it cost him more power in elite play than we hoped. Now, I actually need to go and look back at the nerfs. I guess they said they were buffs. I need to go back and look at the buffs to Aphelios. But essentially on this patch, they're just giving him more extra stats on his Q and his E, I believe. So that's it. That's literally it. They're just giving him more stats. Cool. I think in elite play and also in competitive, this champion generally is going to be paired with Thresh, with Lulu, with Yuumi, well, not Yuumi. Thresh, Lulu are very solid with Aphelios in general, and I think, you know, that's just how this champ functions. He needs a little bit of extra support from his support so that he can actually function. But they're giving him 6 extra bonus damage on his Q, or when you rank up his Q, not on his Q. And then lethality is, you know, is always nice on any sort of attacking damage champion, and it's good against squishies. But I've seen Aphelios last patch, and I wasn't super impressed. I feel like his laning phase is only good if you have a support that hard wins for you. You don't necessarily win laning phase on your own. So, solo lane Aphelios is crazy now. Remember that, YouTube? All right, the prediction has been dropped, so we'll come back to this in a week, and we'll call Makan go out. Kane says he has new VFX, but this is not just a VFX change. They actually have revealed Kane's W when he's in terrain. Now, I don't know how many of you guys have been one-shot from a Kane, blue Kane, out of absolutely nowhere, and you can't even see the W, but I'm really happy they finally did this. This was one of the most annoying parts about playing against blue Kane, when he could run through terrain, and he would just snipe you, and you wouldn't even be able to see the W. You can't even react to it. It's just straight up invisible. So, like, cool. Finally. I mean, they probably should have done that a while ago, because blue Kane had a lot of weird, annoying bugs with his vision, because he goes in and out of walls so much. And, yeah, I don't know. So you can see Kane's W now, even when he's in walls, which is really, really big. They also heavily nerfed Lee Sin. Thank you, Lord. It's great because Lee Sin has been played literally every single role. You could play him, probably not support AD carry as much, but like mid, top, jungle, like this guy is just everywhere. His wave clear, and the police are here because Lee Sin was such an illegal champ. His wave clear is just insanity. It's pure insanity. He builds Iron Spike Whip, and he E's Iron Spike Whips, and half the wave is like 90% of it actually is just dead. So I'm really glad they nerfed his E. They buffed his E like a couple patches ago, and it was like insane. It was a really big buff for his wave clear. But it's 40 damage. That's a lot of damage level 5. And seeing as he maxed it first on solo lane Lee, that's a very, very, very large solo lane Lee nerf. So I'm going to expect people to still try Lee in solo lanes and just be testing how he feels in my elo. I don't think he's gonna stick around as like a top tier blind pick in solo lane. I feel like it's just not as OP anymore. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe people will find a different level of OP. And then finally, when we get to the Stridebreaker changes, I actually think those sort of help Lee Sin in a way. Cool. Olaf's just been buffed. They've just given him extra health, a tiny bit of extra mana growth, but the extra health is kind of nice. It's 7 extra health, cool. I mean, they've just rounded all his numbers up, awesome. Riven has been nerfed. I barely see Riven. I very, very, very rarely see Riven, except, you know, on my Smurf accounts and stuff like that, because a lot of Riven players in Diamond. But, yeah, I mean, she's been nerfed. What can I say? What more can I say? A little bit of her shield has been shaved off. You get 10 less shield, so that's kind of gonna add up over the course of a fight because you're spamming your shield, but it's not like a ground shattering nerf. I think from what I can tell, it says it's strong and skilled in elite play. I personally haven't seen it a lot in high elo, but if their numbers are telling them it's strong in elite play, sure, fair enough. There's a lot of Riven players in all elos, but usually when you find a Riven player, they only play Riven. You know what I mean? They like play only Riven, which means they are going to feel this nerf quite a lot, because when you play only one champ, these kind of small numbers nerfs, you start to notice them in small fights. Anyway, Rumble. This champ is busted as hell. This champ is actually all like completely turbo, disgustingly giga busted in my mind, simply because of his ult cooldown. In solo queue specifically, there's a lot less coordination than in competitive, so you can't punish as hard when Rumble's ult is down. But Rumble ult being such a low cooldown is actually one of his biggest strengths. So while this is a really large nerf in my opinion, because he's just getting less move speed and his W is going to be up far less because he only puts 1 point into W early game, I think it's not the end of the world for Rumble. I think Rumble is still going to be totally fine. I think he's going to clear jungle fine. He's probably going to be okay, and he's going to be able to spam those insanely huge ultimates every 30-40 seconds. And it's crazy. There's so little downtime on his ult. He always has his ultimate up. Always. And in solo queue, if you're not able to punish those kind of like 30-second windows to 30 to 40-second windows where his ult is down, then, you know, you're gonna constantly have to fight against the Rumble with R, who is he's one of the strongest team fighting ults in the game. So yeah, I personally think they should target this guy's ultimate. It's a little nuts. Tom has been reworked. I am probably not the #1 person to talk about Tom Kench, but it's a really interesting rework. So I'm not going to skip over the explanation. We'll just go over it. They have nerfed his health. They've nerfed his health growth. They're making him like, there's like a clown outside or something. They have nerfed his health growth, and they've like nerfed his stats a little bit. They've nerfed his armor a little bit by 5. They've nerfed his auto attack damage on his passive, so your passive auto attack damage dealing percentage health is going to be reduced by a decent amount. They've given his Q a percentage missing health heal, so you heal for 6 to 10% depending on your level of the Q of missing health. That's quite strong. That seems very strong, rather like in general. I mean, that gives him a tremendous amount of sustain in fights. And seeing as he scales purely off of health, I could definitely see a lot of ways that he can become super tanky just by spamming Qs in lane. Not in lane, in team fights. They've nerfed the slow, which is huge because max rank Tom slow was 70 seconds for a full, with 70% for a full 3 seconds, and it didn't decay from what I remember, which is kind of insane. And then they nerfed the slow duration, so it's 40% for 2 seconds flat now, which is cool. And they also kind of nerfed the cooldown. So early game, you're just going to have a higher level of cooldown. But I'm assuming they're going to max Q. I don't think you're going to max W or E. So it's also a lot cheaper, which thinks, in my mind, I think he's being pushed towards this top lane role. I think it's less support and more top lane. But, you know, there's a cool interaction I'll talk about that they added in. Really, really cool, which makes me want to try this guy's support. So W is now a dash. It's a dash with cooldown on it. It is 21 seconds to 17 seconds. And you can take people with you. His old Devour, his old W is now his ult. So yeah, I mean, what else can I say? It's a dash. It's got a ridiculously high mana cost, max level, but it's a dash. I'll have to see exactly what the range is. Maybe we'll go into a practice tool and just quickly double check the range, because that's kind of interesting. I'm really interested to see like how far he can go with that. Thick skin, 2.5 seconds. You get extra 0.5 seconds on the shield. Awesome, cool. Also, they increased the gray health healing, but they nerfed the amount of time you have to be not taking damage. So you have to basically be out of combat, or not out of combat, but you have to not take damage for 4 seconds now, which is a little bit longer. That is a large, in my opinion, a large like kind of nerf to like fights which are very chaotic, because sometimes you could just dip out, wait 2.5 seconds and start getting the health back. But at the same time, it is what it is, you know, like he's going to heal slightly faster from what I can tell. And then Devour is his new ult, so he actually eats people as his ult. That's his ultimate. I want to see the cooldown. I'm going to go check that in practice tool. But he can keep them inside him for 3 seconds. If he hits a champion, he needs to have his passive on. He needs to have 3 stacks of his passive as normal, and then he can eat them. They take a bunch of damage, and then it's based on their maximum health as well. And then he actually is grounded and slowed by 40%. So cool, he's slowed by 40%. That's probably going to be the same thing as when he ate a champion when he was, you know, old Tom. He was super slow, can't flash. So awesome. He can't do any like crazy Skarner shenanigans, but he can do it for a champion. And here's the crazy thing. When you spit the champ out, if it's an ally, they get a shield. Look at this. They get a 300 to 400 to 300, 450 or 600 health shield that lasts for 2.5 seconds. That's cool. That's really cool. It's almost like a Shen ult. It's kind of like a Shen ult. Like you can save your teammates and drop a shield on them. in the middle of a team fight. That's insane. That seems so cool. So another interesting part is the self slow that Tahm Kench applies is actually, it scales with his ultimate level now. So as you level your ult, you actually can move around almost at normal speed. At max rank, it's only 10% movement speed reduction, which is really cool. You can eat someone and actually like still run around at a decent pace at max rank ulti. I'm really interested to see if Tahm makes a comeback. Personally, the way it looks, I think he could be played support, especially because he's been given a shield on his ult. Secondly, he actually could be played top lane as a meta top. We'll see because of his sustain on his Q now. I feel like there's actually options for this champion, and he's less of his power is put into his W, his old W, which is his Devour, because they're balancing it as an ultimate. So that's pretty cool. And then Viego, they're just nerfing Viego. They're just straight up nerfing Viego, which is awesome. I think Viego is a little overtuned right now. It's a little bit hard to deal with him. You get less healing from Viego's Q, which is cool. He's gonna have less sustain. They've also reduced the bonus move speed on his E by, oh no, they've increased. Wait, they actually didn't even say, they just said E base. Oh, okay, yeah, they have increased it. So they've actually increased his E bonus move speed. Why did they do that? They've increased his missile speed and they've increased the missile zone length, which is interesting. But anyway, they've nerfed his sustain. So in laning phase, Viego might actually end up getting slightly nerfed by this, getting slightly hit by this. I don't know. I don't think this seems like a large nerf though. It seems like a very small tap on the wrist. But I'll have to see, because this Blade of the Rune King nerf to his passive might end up ruining some of his matchups where he needs to sustain. But cool. We'll see how it goes. Zaya's just been buffed. She's just been given extra damage on her Q. Cool. So she's given 25 extra damage per feather, which means you get 50 extra damage if you hit both your feathers. Hog. That's just cool. I mean, it's at max rank. You get like 5 extra damage per feather at level 1. But level 1 Diapoke is actually pretty scary. Level 1 Diapoke, it just goes through minions and it's very, very fast to push the waves. So that's actually kind of an interesting buff. And I think this champion is, for me, that she felt like in a fine spot. So maybe you can like out-sustain people just by hard poking them level 1 to 3. It's a pretty big damage buff. But here are the big boy items. So we have 2 new items in the game. Anathema's Chains. So this item is nuts. This item I saw in the PB and I was like, there's no way that this item is going to be balanced. There's no way. I don't see how this item is going to be balanced. It's either going to be completely garbage or the most broken item in the game, in my opinion. What is it? You have, it's 2,500 gold, Giant Spelt, Kindle Gem, 800 gold. It gives you 650 health. That's like one of the largest amounts of health in the game, behind Warmogs, I think, maybe. It gives you 20 ability haste. So it's actually no armor, no MR. That's really important to note, because armor, MR, plus health are generally the best items, because health plus armor, they stack together and they give you extra effective HP, because armor makes each point of health you get more valuable. But I don't know, 650 health is still a large amount of health. And then the effects. So you choose somebody and it starts building up over 60 seconds. And then at the end of the 60 seconds, as they're gaining stacks, that enemy that you choose to bind to actually deals 30% reduced damage to you, which is like, that's nuts. That is crazy. So what couple of things I want to ask about this. Number one, how does it work with the 12% reduced damage from Ninja Tabai from Steel Caps? Does it like stack? Is it multiplicative? It's probably just additive. I don't think it would be multiplicative. It's probably just like 30% plus the 12 from Ninja Tabai. That's 42% reduced damage from auto attacks, so that's kind of ridiculous. And then secondly, like other things. For example, Alistar. How does this stack with Alistar ult? If I ult for 7 seconds and then I get 30% reduced damage, does it apply before my ult or is after my ult? So those are things we're going to have to figure out and try and test out. And then at max stacks, it says your nemesis has 20% reduced tenacity while near you. That is interesting. That is super, super interesting. So there's probably a bunch of champions that can increase the amount of chain CC they have to the point where their chain CC downtime, their CC downtime is going to be low enough that it's really hard to deal with them. And I think the point is to give split pushers or people who can just out sustain you in lane a little bit of an item to be scared of. If you're a Fiora into an Ornn, you're pretty much never scared of Ornn. But at some point, if you have this item, Ornn could potentially be looking for, he could keep you CC'd combined with the brittle plus the reduced tenacity for a very long time. And maybe that's enough to at least dissuade you from just 24/7 only fighting the Orin. But I don't know, we'll see. It's a really interesting item. And I might even unironically try and buy this on Alistair. And I think in our games today, what I'm going to try and do is buy this item second and see how it feels. See exactly if it, especially against 1 threat or 2 threat damage comps. I'm going to give it a shot and see if it's really strong. And then another new item is Hull Breaker. So they have added a new item for fighters to try and push their lead. And, you know, it's 50 attack damage, 300 health, health regen. And yeah, I mean, what it actually does is more interesting than the item itself. Excuse me. When no allied champions are nearby, you gain armor and magic resist. You deal 20% increased damage to towers. Large minions also gain armor and magic resist and deal damage to towers. Sorry, man. Oh, I just ate a Domino's pizza. So, oh, man, I'm feeling it right now. So this is kind of an interesting item, you know? Any beefy kind of frontline tanks that want to be able to match up against split push and not have to just only build Divine Sunderer. Not Sunderer, sorry. Not have to build only Stridebreaker. That's an interesting choice for them. And I think I'm going to be probably seeing this being tested by a bunch of fighters. I did a coaching session today and a set built it, and it looked pretty interesting. There's probably a bunch of other bruisers that can build this item. I think it looks really solid. It's probably going to make the kind of bruiser meta a little bit less team fighty and more give them an option to split push to win the game instead of just having to group up and team fight. Because bruisers, as the game goes on, tend to scale. They have like a period mid game where they spike really hard and they start to drop off again. And then mobility items. This is a really big change. So for anyone who doesn't know, Stridebreaker's dash, it's gone. No more dash. No more dash on Stridebreaker. They have buffed the health by 100. They have nerfed the attack damage by 5. And they have given you the option to actually like pop it while moving, so you don't have to pause. And they've increased the halting slash damage and decreased the cooldown of Stridebreaker by 15 seconds. So I said, on one hand, this is a nerf, right? You're just losing a dash. You're just straight up losing a dash. It's a big nerf to certain champs that relied on the dash. Certain champions that come to mind in lane are people like Darius. I think it's a nerf for Darius because he used the dash to land his combos quite effectively. It was really strong on Darius as an item to confirm your Q and to confirm your E. And then there's other champions like Garen that really benefited from the dash. So on one hand, I think it's a big nerf to those champs. But then on the other hand, the stats itself and the actual active is just so strong. They have given it a lower cooldown, more damage, and you can use it while moving. So like if you can actually close the gap to the enemy team, this item just gives you way more stats now. You're just getting way more combat benefit from this item. So it's interesting. There's a bunch of champs that I think don't actually need the dash and now would actually want to build Stridebreaker because it's a better item for them now. Whereas a lot of the previously on the previous patch, a lot of the power in Stridebreaker was put into its dash as in, you know, as an item. So also the slow is nuts. It is a 90% slow, decaying over 3 seconds. It goes 90 to 40. That is a ridiculous slow. 90% slow is like insanity. So I'm really curious to see how hard I'm gonna get screwed over by this Stridebreaker. There's probably a couple of champs in my opinion that can just hard abuse this, like Shurelya maybe, or you know, other champions that don't need the dash. I can't think of too many off the top of my head, but we'll probably see a few. Riven, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, they're also nerfing mobility around the board. So obviously less move speed, Gale Force, less move speed, Lichbane, Cosmic Drive, Black Cleaver, Deadman's Play. They just nerfed all the move speed. This is a bug, not a bug, a misprint or a mistake. From what I remember, Deadman's Play is only on 5 seconds build up duration. It's not an 8. I don't know. I guess I just forgot, but I saw that on Reddit and I actually double checked and I think it was right. So it's 5 seconds to 4 seconds, not 8 to 4. Triforce, less move speed. They also nerfed the attack damage on Triforce. Less move. You don't get move speed on Death Stance anymore. This is a really big one for us, boys and girls. Shurelya's has been nerfed from 60% to 30% move speed. It used to go 60% decaying. Now it's just a flat 30. So I'm going to test out Shurelya's. I'm going to test it out and see how it feels. I'm expecting it to feel pretty rough. I'm expecting it to not feel super good. And we might end up going to Anathema's Chains and trying out other different builds. It's going to be pretty interesting. Prowler's Claw also, they have nerfed the cooldown heavily. They have nerfed the lethality, and you can only use it on enemy champs now. And you can't use it on minions, which is really a big nerf to stuff like Prowler's Claw, Varus, and things like that, in my opinion. So, rip, no more like reckless montage plays. And then they're also buffing a bunch of mage items. So 200 less gold to build Leandries, 1050, 100, well, yeah, it's a 200 gold decrease in Luden's Tempest, and that costs 1050, and Everfrost is also just straight up 200% less combined cost, which is like, cool. It's just cheaper. I mean, That's probably a big buff to a couple of mage builds. They're going to spike earlier. Moonstone has also been buffed. 1% extra healing per stack. It is definitely being overshadowed by Shurelya's, and with Shurelya's being super heavily nerfed, I am expecting to see a lot more Moonstone on champions like Lulu, champions like potentially Yumi, but Ludens is still a very strong build on her. I'm expecting to see a lot more Moonstone. And also, thank God they have nerfed ranged Divine Thunderer builds. Ezreal has been nerfed. 3% reduced target max HP when you hit your Divine Thunderer procs on Ezreal. God, this champ is horrible. Somebody deliver me from having to play against Ezreals every single game. Please save me. It is so painful. And then also another nerf to Phase Rush builds is Nimbus Cloak. So this is a big one because Hex Flash Nimbus Cloak was such a common combo, and they have just straight up nerfed it. And they've nerfed it for there's basically 3 tiers of Nimbus Cloak. The way it works is the longer the cooldown of your summoner, the more move speed you get, right? The more move speed you get whenever you use Nimbus Cloak. So the way this works is once you reach certain thresholds, you end up getting the bonus move speed. And they've nerfed the top end move speed by 10%, but the middle and the bottom tiers seem to be fine. So I'm going to test it out and see how it feels. But from what I can tell, using Hex Slash should proc Nimbus Cloak. I think it should be either 5 or 20%, but it should be 20%. If it was the 35% previously, then I'll have to double check, and it might feel a little worse. But I still think Phase Rush Ali will always run Nimbus Cloak. And they've buffed Ghost Poro. They've buffed Ghost Poro a lot. So it's 90 seconds extra, or 30 seconds extra, and it's up to 90 now. And 2 extra seconds on the enemy reveal. I've never taken Ghost Poro on support. I think it's a bait on support. When you're going domination on supports, generally you want to take Zombie Ward if you're clearing a lot of vision, or Relentless Hunter, out of combat move speed to move around the map really fast. So Ghost Poro feels more like a solo lane or AD carry, or probably solo lane rune, but I think it's actually pretty awesome on solo lanes now because 90 seconds of vision, that's insane. That's actually a really large amount of vision. That's bigger than, most sources of vision pre support wardstone. Or warding item. Nobody builds wardstone. So what I'm trying to say is maybe solo laners will start taking Ghost Poro because that's a big buff to Ghost Poro. Very, very big buff. So and I think you can stick it in a brush and forget about it for 90 seconds and be pretty happy you're not going to get caught out. That's pretty cool. Another interesting thing they did, and this is such a big patch by the way, holy crap. Turret updates. They have given inner turrets, top and bot, an extra amount of gold. They grant extra 250 local gold. That is a large amount of gold, and that will also kind of push things more towards split pushers. So with the Hullbreaker changes, the introduction of Hullbreaker and then Anathema's change, maybe we're going to see a lot more people experimenting with split pushing. Solo queue split pushing is still rather difficult to pull off cleanly, unless you're a really coordinated team, or at least your solo laner split pusher has to be super fed to pull it off. But it's an interesting idea, give the inner turrets, top and bot, a little bit more gold. Awesome. And also they say turret inventories now show how much gold you get, so I'm going to start clicking on turrets and actually looking for that. That's kind of cool. And Smite does less damage to minions. I mean, whatever, I guess. If you're a Shaco player or a Daisy player. Well, not Shaco player, it's Annie, Daisy, Heimerdinger. All those kind of champions are going to be happy. And then that's it. I believe that is the patch. So patch rundown is done. Personally, just to summarize this patch, heavily nerfed the Phase Rush Alistar build. So this week is going to be me trying to figure out the best build on Alistar and trying to figure out what we can do to Alistar, testing out the new items, and it's going to be really fun. So thank you very much for watching, guys. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can come say hi on Twitch. I'm going to be testing out all the stuff on my Twitch. And if you're watching on Twitch, what are you guys doing? Go sub to my YouTube, you nerds. Anyway, cool. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Appreciate it all. And yeah, good luck in solo queue.